Just over the border of Nebraska, past the rolling sandhills of the west, lies the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota. These 3.1 million acres are home to the Ogallala Lakota people.
This is my home and my parents' home, and it's a tough place.
It's very rural. Of course, there's not a lot of money flowing around.
When you cross that reservation line, it's a different world.
It can be a hard place, but it's also a beautiful place.
I'm Olivia Reed.
And I'm Marissa Lindeman. The stories that we are about to tell you come from the lived experiences of the Ogallala Lakota people.
There are people, women every day that are being abused, being hurt, some being murdered on the reservation.
Alcohol was not our way, but obviously through time it's played a role in our downfall of our people.
She was there for me, thick and thin, whatever I went through. She was always there.
Martin Woundedfoot is talking about Sherry Woundedfoot, the woman who raised him. She was a mother, a sister, and a friend.
I used to call her Kermit. Kermit for old kids. Kermie! She didn't like that.
She was always very happy. She was a happy person, even though some of the conditions that she lived in were not very favorable.
She was a really soft, kind-hearted person. She always took in a lot of people in her home.
Sandra Graham was born when her mother was 18. Sherry Woundedfoot was a single mom. She often worked multiple jobs to care for her loved ones, like her godson, Martin Woundedfoot. But there came a time when she struggled with alcohol.
In 2010, my brother was found dead below our house. When he passed away, she started struggling with drinking.
Pine Ridge is a dry reservation. Residents have to travel off the reservation to get alcohol. Until 2017, residents walked from the reservation in South Dakota to White Clay, Nebraska to buy it.
I would say that White Clay had been called the Skid Row on the prairie.
The culture in White Clay at that time was when the people would go there to drink, they tended a lot of times to hang out together.
White Clay is where Sherry Woundedfoot and her boyfriend at the time, Greeley Whiteface, were headed to get alcohol on the morning of August 4th, 2016. That's according to Sheridan County Attorney Jamie Simmons and Sherry's daughter, Sandra Graham.
They didn't tell me they were going to White Clay. About 9:20 or somewhere around there, she called me from a bar in White Clay and asked me to go get her. She said she was cold.
Sherry Woundedfoot, a Pine Ridge resident, was found here the morning of August 5th, 2016, behind the old 555 thrift store, unconscious and unresponsive.
That morning, it was just Greeley that had woken up with Sherry, and then he went to get the two people when she was unresponsive. And it was one of those two that actually made the 911 call. It was reported as an unresponsive, intoxicated woman.
EMTs took Sherry Woundedfoot by ambulance to the Pine Ridge Indian Health Service Hospital. The Sheridan County Attorney said Woundedfoot was diagnosed with a subdural hematoma, or bleeding on the brain.
She was on all kinds of machines, and through all the tubes and the taping, I was inspecting her, and she was pretty beat up.
Woundedfoot died August 17th, surrounded by her family. According to the Nebraska State Patrol, Woundedfoot's death was ruled a homicide, and her unsolved murder has had a lasting impact on her family.
That was my heart. That was my reason for living. After her, I lost everything. and gave up on working. Probably basically life.
She was the thing that held us together, that held everyone together, and now that she's not here, like, it hasn't been the same.
I first received notice of the Sherry Wounded Foot investigation on the day she died.
Investigators began asking the questions. How could this have happened? Who did this to Wounded Foot? And why? There were several theories.
One was there was a lot of reported domestic abuse with Greeley Whiteface. There was also reported that Sherry had been in a fight with a woman in White Clay on August 4th. And then there was a third story where there was a red pickup, and that pickup struck Sherry.
Simmons said they investigated all theories thoroughly, but were unable to come to a conclusion.
A subdural hematoma, you can walk around and function just fine with an injury like that sometimes without knowing or really exhibiting any symptoms. All three of the stories could potentially have resulted in that injury.
Since Wounded Foot was found unresponsive in White Clay, the Sheridan County Sheriff's Office began the initial investigation. As the investigation continued, more resources were needed, and other law enforcement became involved.
Nebraska State Patrol took over the investigation of Sherry Wounded Foot's case from Sheridan County. It's been 8 years now, and no new leads. Questions about her death remain unanswered.
I'm very familiar with that case.
Colonel John Bulldog said they continue to investigate Wounded Foot's murder.
The working theory, as I understand it, is that she was the victim of domestic violence, likely a domestic violence victim, but we didn't have witnesses who either saw what happened or were willing to come forward and tell us what they saw.
Bulldog maintains it's a regional effort to bring Sherry Wounded Foot's killer to justice.
We are working with the Sheriff's Office, and we have coordinated with our counterparts in South Dakota, again, to see if there are any new leads that come up in that local community there. And obviously that includes the FBI, South Dakota authorities, and tribal authorities there.
Tribal authorities maintain their own stance. They have no jurisdiction to investigate cases like Wounded Foot's when they occur outside the reservation.
If it falls off the reservation, we don't have any authority. And there's very specific elements that allow us to enforce. So we have jurisdiction only on the tribal members.
Even when crimes occur within their jurisdiction, investigative resources have been limited for the tribe. In 2022, the Ogallala Sioux tribe sued the federal government for more financial resources to fund their patrol. They won their case, but litigation is ongoing.
We're the largest land-based tribe here in the Great Plains, and we only have 5 officers patrolling daily. It's real frustrating when you lack those resources in law enforcement. And that's what we're trying to change.
It's been almost 8 years since Sherry Wounded Foot died, and 7 years since the alcohol stores closed. Today, White Clay is a very different place.
When I was growing up, as a little boy, little kid, I'd be in the bars in White Clay with my parents, you know. But that's just the way it was. Alcohol has always been our drug of choice on the reservation.
In 2008, Mark Vicina produced a documentary about White Clay and its high number of bar and alcohol stores per capita. Multiple media reports, including The Wounds of White Clay, produced by the University of Nebraska College of Journalism and Mass Communication students, led the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission in 2017 to revoke all of the small town's liquor licenses.
Its impact on the lives and health and well-being of the Lakota people on Pine Ridge is immense.
Well, once the beer stores closed down, White Clay cleared out pretty quickly.
The Ogallala Lakota people are determined to be defined by more than what has happened to them.
Indian country is always faced with challenges and barriers and dysfunctions, you know, whether it be from the government, the state, our surrounding towns, the cities. We have to deal with not only poverty, but racism and every other challenge that follows those things.
According to President Frank Starr Comes Out, the Pine Ridge Reservation has an 80% unemployment rate. The poverty and substance abuse issues that plagued the reservation in 2016 are still ongoing, but he believes that there is hope.
We may live in poverty, but we're rich in culture, we're rich in history, we're rich in spirituality. That's what makes us strong, that's what makes us oglalas, and that's what gives us a voice.
Although White Clay has transformed into a different place, Sherry Wounded Foot's case remains unsolved. For now, her story and case is featured prominently on the Nebraska Crime Stoppers webpage.
As of this date, we don't have anything substantial to help us bring that case to a conclusion. I would like the public to know that we know somebody out there knows something, and we would love for them to come forward to help us bring justice for Sherry and her family and to bring this case to a conclusion.
The National Crime Information Center reports that in 2016, there were 5,712 reported missing Native American and Alaska Native women and girls. The murder rate for women living on reservations is 10 times higher than the national average.
She's not the only one. There are other situations, other stories that are really hurting this area, this community.
Wounded Foot is one of the many missing and or murdered Indigenous women. It's become a national crisis described by some as an epidemic.
You see all these people that keep missing from Pine Ridge, these women and shit. There's nothing happening. So like nobody even cares.
There's a lot of forgotten families out here that for the moment will get support, and years down the road there's nothing.
Sherry Wounded Foot's family is still hopeful someone will uncover what happened to her, that there will be a resolution to her unsolved murder.
She's my sister and I miss her a lot, and I hope this could solve something, bring some justice, have some peace.
It's peace that the family is still looking for today.
She wasn't just an alcoholic. She was loved. She gave a lot of love. She was a really good person.
If you have any information about the death of Sherry Wounded Foot, please call Nebraska Crime Stoppers at 1-800-422-1494. To provide any information about a missing or murdered Indigenous woman, please call Strong Hearts Native Helpline at 1-844-762-8483. You can also call the Bureau of Indian Affairs tip line at 1-833-560-2065 or text BIAMMU and your tip to 847411.
I'm Marissa Lindeman.
And I'm Olivia Reed.
For UNL's In-Depth Reporting.